Wow, we're here.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh, there we are. Now, why don't you go ahead and repeat what you just said to me a second ago?
I'm excited to be drinking some mezcal. I love mezcal. Anybody that knows me knows I love mezcal. So
if it wasn't, I guess 11 a.m. is not too early to have a mezcal, but I think I'll wait.
I'm not waiting. I have a cocktail and a shot. So
well, I think that people are kind of flowing in right now, but I think we can get started. Toki, is that okay with you?
Of course.
All right. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. My name's Corey James. We've been doing this for a long time, so I'm sure most of you know who I am. I'm the brand ambassador for Montelobos and Ancho Reyes at Campari, and I'm very excited for this session today. It's called Are You Not Entertained? Which we will be for sure. Today's session is sponsored by Montelobos. Montelobos' history is rich from inception to development to execution, and our session today will be focusing on some rich history as well. Entertainment and cocktails have been a perfect pair for many years, either the martini shaken not stirred made just to Bond's liking, or a Cosmopolitan made famous by Carrie Bradshaw and her best girlfriends. Their individual history goes beyond the silver screen and the books they were first introduced in. And today we're going to dive into the two, cocktails and entertainment, taking you behind the scenes of their conception, inception, and how they became ingrained into cocktail culture. Now, our presenter today is Tokiwa Sears. Hi, Toki. How are you?
Hi. Hey, Corey. Hey, y'all.
Toki is a member of Drinking with the Girls, a movement of female bartenders brought together by the spirit of cocktails, education, and charity. She's also the owner of Miss Libation LLC, a cocktail consulting company focusing on cocktail creation, bartender training, menu development, cocktail classes, events, and much more. Now, I'm sure most of you know, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them into the comment thread, and they will be directed to me, and I can kind of pepper them through. And if you haven't already, please follow Toki on Instagram at Miss Libation to see what she's up to, as well as myself, Ancho Hancho, and of course, Campari community for all the fun things our team is up to as well. Toki, tell us.
Let's
tell
do
us
this.
Yes,
we are going to have some fun today. I wanted to do something a little different. So, entertainment and cocktails go hand in hand, you know, and it's really cool to see how cocktail culture comes from so many different things. One of those things being like entertainment, books, movies, things of that sort. You know, entertainment is one of the biggest influences in culture, and it also tells the time and the story of what's going on at that time. Books, films, and television have been some of the most influential and largest platforms to entertain the masses. I read that the Epic of Gilgamesh was said to be the oldest work of literature that surfaced around 2100 BCE, which is a long time ago, like a real long time ago.
That's an old
that's like thousands of years ago. And Roundhay Garden Scene was believed to be the first motion picture in 1888. And then, you know, TVs came around in like around 1927. And then, you know, kind of 1800s, during that century, cocktail culture and bar culture started intertwining with everything else that was going on. And people sat at bars to share news and to laugh and to cry and to meet people and to fight and to just like share news. And there was no newspapers way back then, so it was more of a communal space, right? But today I want to take a look at take a fun look at an informative look. I have some cocktails, whether they're classics or just some obscure ones maybe you haven't heard of, or even some mainstream ones from what we call the dark ages of cocktails, were created, influenced, and or popularized by some very entertaining pieces. One of my favorite cocktails. So I love a good blood and sand. I know a lot of people, it's a debate. It has to be really balanced. But I love a good blood and sand. And it's also named after this really really scandalous movie called Blood and Sand. And yeah, so that movie came out in 1922, and it was about a Spanish matador. You know, he was a bullfighter, and he rose to fame, and he rose to fame, and he started cheating on his wife. He got seduced by this rich lady, and he struggled between the love for his wife and his mistress and his fame. I mean, it just sounds like something that would happen today, you know. And the Blood and Sand cocktail is named after this film. So the Blood and Sand, the recipe surfaced in 1930 in a Savoy cocktail book by Harry Craddock, which is, if you don't have a copy of that book,
get it.
Yeah. You gotta have that book. You have to have that cocktail book. But it's equal parts scotch, cherry herring, sweet vermouth, and fresh orange juice. And it's one of my absolute favorites. And I think it's really, really cool. If I remember correctly, the cherry herring is supposed to represent the blood, and the orange juice is supposed to represent the sand. So it pays homage to that film that came out about 8 years before it was put in that recipe book.
Yeah, and you know, this cocktail, actually, I have had this cocktail with mezcal before, just so everybody's aware. It is delicious too.
Yeah, I would agree. A lot of people are on the fence scotch-wise as far as like, do you do a peated scotch in this cocktail, or you do something kind of more blended and soft? Yeah. I'm all for the smoke, so I am with you there. Yeah. I would love like a really nice aged mezcal, or I mean, gosh, there's so many different types of mezcals. Mezcal is so amazing, but I agree with you on that one.
That smoke will work really nicely, and mezcal also has a lot of body too, so it'll kind of stand up in that drink.
A lot of body, yes.
You get that body.
All right, let's go on to the next slide. Let's see what's going on. Oh, the Great Gatsby. So this was of course, it was a book first, and then I know it was redone fairly recently as a movie with Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yep.
But it takes place in the Roaring 20s, and it's about a millionaire named Jay Gatsby. And he's like obsessed with one of his former lovers, Daisy Buchanan. And it's just a very kind of whimsical, very rambunctious book and movie. But the author, F. Scott Fitzgerald, his favorite libation, and this is a common theme. I see that a lot of the authors, a lot of their favorite things, or some of the things from their lives or their past, they incorporate into their books and movies and such. But in chapter 7 of the book, Tom Buchanan makes 4 gin rickeys at a lunch he hosts for Gatsby. And the cocktail was created somewhere around the summer of 1883 by a Democrat by the name of Joe Rickey. So the cocktail is actually named after him. It's a super easy cocktail. If someone orders a Rickey, it's just the juice of half a lime. In this case, it's a Rickey gin, and club soda. And you're supposed to throw the shell of the juice lime into the Collins glass as well.
Yeah,
I can see that working with mezcal too.
A Rickey has become a style of cocktail in our culture, correct?
Definitely.
I mean, like a Rickey is just simply the soda, the juice, and the spirit.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so jealous. I need a drink.
I've been waiting on this mezcal drink, so I'm excited. Next slide, please. The Sun Also Rises. So this another scandalous story. So this was written by Ernest Hemingway, and we all know Ernest Hemingway, and he loved his libations, and I think he was diabetic, so a lot of the drinks that were kind of catered to him, like the Hemingway daiquiri, were made without sugar, for that reason. But this story is like a whole entanglement. Like, there's a lot going on in this story. Lady Brett, so there's this gentleman, his name is Jake, and he was injured in war. What's the best way I can put this? His member was injured in war, so he's not able to get his romance on like he wants to, but he has an affinity to Lady Brett, and she's like, she knows it, she kind of plays it to her favor, and then there's other friends in the whole circle. There's Mike and Robert. Romero I think he's a matador as well. And this book, it takes place, I know it takes place in Spain. I feel like they bounced over to France. I could be mistaken about that. But the whole like entanglement part takes place in Spain at the Fiesta of San Fermin. So that is like this big party that is like surrounding the running of the bulls. So there's like a lot of drinking and partying, and it's the running of the bulls, and it's this whole festival. And so the Jack Rose is Jake's favorite cocktail. He invites Lady Brett to the hotel bar at the hotel he was at, and his bartender was making him Jack Roses, I guess, to kind of soothe over his sorrow, because Lady Brett actually stood him up. So yeah,
there's a lot of scandals happening.
I know, it's pretty sad. But so there's many theories about the origin of the Jack Rose, but one that I found I think is probably the most credible is a bartender by the name of Frank Haas created it. And he also is credited with creating the Daisy, which would make sense because the Jack Rose is a Daisy as far as categories of cocktails. And the name of that bar was Eberlin's, and it was on Wall Street in New York. And according to a reporter that wrote about this cocktail, the first time it was written about was in 1899.
You know, I feel like this cocktail was when I first started working in like an actual cocktail bar, one of the first cocktails I learned how to make that wasn't just the classic Manhattan or anything like that. It was like a little outside of that. And I remember when someone would come in and order this drink, I was always like, "Oh, this person knows what they're talking about." You know, I'd get excited, and then I'd be able to like talk to them about cocktails or whatever. But the other thing I wanted to mention too is that, I mean, Ancho Reyes, I got to mention it because this is why we're here too. You know, Ancho Reyes is there's not a whole lot of classic cocktails that you can't enhance your drinking experience with either one of the Ancho Reyeses. And Ancho Reyes Original, I feel like if you just took out half the grenadine and added a little ancho, that would just bang this cocktail right out.
I agree. I definitely could see that, and then give it a little hint of the spice with the chili.
Yeah.
But you got to use the pomegranate. Anytime you see grenadine in this presentation, folks know I am talking about pomegranate grenadine. I am not talking about. I wasn't gonna say that, but I'm talking about real grenadine. Yeah. All right, next slide, please. Golden Dawn. So, yeah. This movie is a trip. So this movie is very controversial. It was made. It was an operetta first, and then it was adapted to a film. I'm just gonna say it. This movie was very strong racial overtones. Yeah, it was a trip. I looked for the movie, and I feel like just modern day they were like, we're not touching this movie. But it's about a European girl, and she's raised by an East African tribe, and then the leader of the tribe like tries to get with her, and then her people try to come rescue her, and it's a mess of a film. But there's a cocktail that was named after this film called The Golden Dawn. And ironically, the cocktail, I've never had this cocktail, But ironically, the cocktail is supposed to be really delicious. It won the world's finest cocktail in a United Kingdom Bartenders Guild contest in 1930. It's supposed to be equal parts Calvados and dry gin with some apricot liqueur, orange juice, and some bitters and a little bit of grenadine. So it was interesting. Like in this case, the cocktail surpasses the film that it was named after.
Wow. I mean, you have to surpass a film with those racial undertones.
Yeah, it was everything. Like I tried to find the film to watch it myself. I could find like a couple of little clips here and there, but no one's touching this film. They're like, we're not. No, YouTube is like, nope. I'm playing it.
Now I want to see it to see how bad it is.
Yeah, people were like, it's trash. So it definitely wouldn't, you know, at the time, but it definitely wouldn't in 2020. They're like, nah, we're not doing that. So, but a good cocktail came out of it. So I guess that's the silver lining. So
of course.
Thumbs down for the movie, thumbs up for the drink. Next slide. Oh, this is one of my favorite drinks.
I was just gonna say the same thing. I love this cocktail so much, and also I always find it so interesting. Like a lot of the drinks that were being made back then were all equal parts. Like they were just like the same amount of everything in there. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah. A lot of people say that this kind of goes in the like Corpse Reviver #2 kind of family, or the Blood and Sands family. I've seen a couple of different recipes as far as proportions that kind of deviate from the equal parts aspects. But it's interesting because the 20th century, the cocktail was actually named after the train. So there was a train called the 20th Century Limited that went from New York to Chicago. And then I found out there was actually a movie called 20th Century that had the train in it as well. And the movie was about this very like domineering and just kind of over the top controlling Broadway producer. And he pretty much grooms this, I think she was a former model, and he kind of grooms her to be an actress, and then her career takes off. But she's kind of like tired of all his controlling ways, you know.
Yeah. Well,
and so she becomes this superstar, and he actually takes the 20th Century Limited train to go find her to try to help himself resurrect his career, even though she really doesn't want nothing to do with him. So,
you know, another fun tidbit of information about this actor in this movie is this is Drew Barrymore's grandfather.
When I saw that, I did think that in my mind. I'm glad that you said that.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I wonder, but I didn't even bother to look it up. But I did have that feeling, so that's pretty cool.
The other thing too that I really love is these older style cocktails that have so much history. They're not using a sugar; they're using the sugar that's already available in all of these other ingredients to make a cocktail, and I find that to be not only sustainable, but just a much more efficient way to balance a drink. And I feel like people have kind of gotten away from that. So I always love kind of going back and seeing these drinks being no simple syrup. You know what I mean? Like that's been a thing.
I agree with you on that. And that's actually always been something kind of in the back of my head.
Yeah.
Whenever I tried to, I've created cocktails. Whenever I create cocktails, sometimes I think about like, can this liqueur kind of like pull the sweetness that I need? And I really don't need, there's some amazing cocktails that do exactly that. And then this one is kind of Art Deco, and a lot of people are like creme de cacao and gin. It's like, it works. I mean, I've had gin chocolate martinis, but anyway, we'll talk about that later. All right. Next slide. Casablanca.
Oh, this is such a classic, obviously.
It is, and this is like one of the. There's a lot of drinking in this film, and this is like one of the most iconic, if not the most iconic, bar culture, cocktail culture movies of all time. You know, and you've got some great quotes that come out of here, like "Here's looking at you, kid," and of all the gin joints in all the towns in all the world, she walks into mine. But
Yeah.
Casablanca is a good film. It's about a nightclub and bar owner named Rick Blaine, and he owns, I think it's called Rick's Cafe is the name of his bar, and it's in Casablanca, which is in Morocco. And he finds out that one of his old lovers that he still has strong feelings for, her name is Lisa, and she's in town with her new husband. And her new husband's name is Victor. And Victor, I'm assuming he's known for something he did in the war, but the Germans are like hot on his trail. They're after him. And Lisa pretty much uses Rick to help her and Victor get out of Dodge, to get out the country. So there's a lot of like drinking champagne and brandy, and Rick has his own bottle of bourbon stashed at the bar. There's some champagne cocktails, but the French 75 is definitely a cocktail that was popularized out of this movie. Next slide, please.
There also was several other cocktails too that came from that particular cocktail, right? A French 125, I think.
Yes. Yeah, there are. So I think from what I read, the French 125 sometimes is used cognac. When they talk about cognac ones. And I've always found this interesting because there's always been a back and forth, like which one was first?
Yeah.
Was it the gin? Was it the cognac? Because even though it's called a French 75, it's an American cocktail. It was made in the States.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's always kind of been a thing, and being as though New Orleans is like the cocktail epicenter of the world, you know. A lot of people believe that it was cognac that was originally the main spirit in a French 75. Yeah. Either way, it's delicious.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm trying to remember, have I played with mezcal in a French 75 riff before?
I've definitely seen, I can't remember the number that came after it, but I've for sure seen like it's either with, I'm pretty sure it's with mezcal, but it was like a French something, or there was another name for it that was that style of cocktail made with mezcal. I'm not sure. I've definitely tried mezcal cocktails with champagne, and it's interesting. It makes it a little bit more challenging to kind of put those flavors together. But
yeah,
anything can work if you just put your mind to it.
Definitely, it's a lot of times it's all about just the proportions and how the flavors brought together.
Yeah,
and if I were to. My mind always goes, like, especially with Mexican spirits, my mind will always just directly go to lime instead of lemon.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so according to Dave Wondrich, shout out to Dave Wondrich, the recipe first appears in a 1927 book called Here's How. And the French 75 was named after the French 75 field gun that was used in World War I and into World War II as well. So very interesting, iconic drink, classy, delicious, refreshing. So one of my favorites.
Yeah, delicious. And then in this particular cocktail, do you know if the original was just like granulated sugar added into the drink, right? It wasn't like a simple syrup.
Correct. Thing. Yeah, I think simple syrup is kind of more
later,
on the modern side of. I think it was like super fine sugar, if I'm not mistaken. Pretty granulated. I guess it's the same thing for the most part. All right, next slide, please. Some like it hot. This.
I dressed up for Halloween one year, and it was a hit.
Yeah. So. This film is so funny, so funny. And I feel like it was a little bit ahead of its time because there's elements I think that people weren't really ready for at the time, but super funny. It stars Marilyn Monroe. Her name is Sugar Cane. It also stars Tony Curtis and Jack Lemmon. And they play Joe and / Josephine and Jerry / Daphne. So these two guys are in this band and they witness like this gang killing. So they're on the run, right? They're trying to get out of town. So they disguise themselves as women and they join an all-woman band to escape town and go to Florida. So they like sneak on this train, and the really cool scene, like the scene with them making Manhattans is so cool because this is supposed to take place in the Roaring 20s. So this is during Prohibition. So they have to sneak to drink. So in the scene where they're dressed up as women, so it would be Josephine and Daphne, where they meet Sugar Cane and the other girls in the band in the back of the stagecoach, right? Sugar Cane has a bottle of bourbon, right? And so I'm not sure if it was Joe or I'm not sure if it was Josephine or Daphne that came back there first, but it was like, what are you doing? It's like, I got this bourbon. And then they're like taking shots of the bourbon. And then one of the girls from the band is like nosy, like, what y'all doing? And like, we're having a party. Oh, I got some vermouth. Let's make some Manhattans. So they it's like all the girls wake up and they're like, oh, we need some Manhattans. Oh, we're making Manhattans. Where's the cocktail shaker? Who has the maraschino cherries? I'll get the crackers. I'll get the cheese, And they all piled up in the back of this stagecoach. And they have a hot water bag. Clearly not a real cocktail shaker. They have a hot water bag. And they are making Manhattans. Oh, not too much vermouth. And the bourbon and the Manhattans in this hot water bag. And then they're like pouring it in little paper cups. And it was just so cute and so funny.
So the cocktail in this movie was made, they didn't mention any bitters at all in this movie.
I didn't see bitters in this scene, no.
So I was always, tell me if this is true or not, but I was always taught that a Manhattan is 212 because that was the area code. Is that true?
I've never heard that about the area code.
Oh my God, maybe that was just like an anecdotal thing so I could remember.
That's cute though.
It's like the easiest recipe to remember, right? 2 ounces.
That's really cute.
1 ounce of vermouth, 2 dashes of bitters, and they were like, "Yeah, that's the area code of Manhattan." And I was like, "What?"
That's cute. I never heard of that before, though. No, I mean it's always been 2 to 1, and I don't know. I do more than 2 dashes of bitters. Honestly, I probably do like 4. But I've never heard of 212. That's cute. Right? Yeah, that's real cute. And also traditionally, Manhattans are made traditionally with rye whiskey and not bourbon, but I would assume during Prohibition you kind of have to rock with what you have. So, exactly. I got bourbon. Let's make it work. And a lot of people do like bourbon Manhattan. So
yeah.
So rumor has it that this cocktail was created sometime around 1880 at the Manhattan Club in New York City. There's other stories I'm sure you heard, but I'm not even gonna go there I'm trying to stay away from like the rumors, you know what I mean? And there's lots of great like variations that exist. Like there's the Rob Roy, there's another one. What is it?
Perfect.
Mm-hmm. Dry.
Mm-hmm.
There's one called it's the tip of my tongue and it has maraschino in it. And it's named after another part of New York. Anyway, it'll probably come back to me like way after this. But anyway, let's go on to the next slide. Blue Hawaii.
This one, I swear to God.
This movie.
If this is on the menu, I have to order it just because it's bright blue and it is delicious. Like, I don't care what anybody says. I love this drink.
Well, I agree with you on that. And actually, there is a Blue Hawaiian or a Blue Hawaii cocktail, but in the film, the Mai Tai was the standout cocktail in this movie.
Yeah.
This movie's a trip. So this is one of Elvis Presley's biggest movies. And it's so I'm sorry. I tried to watch the whole thing, but it's so
Movies
it's
are
so
very different.
cheeky. It's so cheeky and it's kind of chauvinistic. But it's about what's his name in the film? I didn't even put it on
God,
here. I
I wish I
forget.
had seen this movie. I mean, half of these movies I have not seen because uh, they're super old.
This is so I watched like maybe half of this. It's a musical romantic comedy. Elvis Presley, he's a young man returning home to Hawaii from the army, and his dad owns a pineapple company. So his dad wants right. His dad wants him to work for the pineapple company and kind of fall in line or whatever. And it's so, let me tell you how scandalous this is. So the opening scene is him flying. He's getting off the plane, and his girlfriend, her name is Maylee, I think that's how you pronounce it. So she's waiting for him to greet him, and she has delays, and she's like, oh, waiting. And he's like standing in the doorway of the plane, making out with another girl in front of her.
Wasn't that like Elvis's whole career though? That's just
It was
following him
terrible.
the
I
whole
was
time.
like, I can't watch this whole thing. So anyway, but the Mai Tai became popular. Classic Mai Tai became popular out of this film.
Leo's name is Chadwick Gates.
Chadwick, that's what it is.
Yeah. Thanks, Leo.
Thank you, Leo. I watched a lot of movies putting this presentation together, so I appreciate that, Leo. So the Mai Tai was created in 1944 by Victor from the restaurant chain Trader Vic's. Rum, orange curacao, orgeat. Orgeat is a almond syrup, rock candy syrup, and fresh lime juice. I like to do a little like dark rum float on top personally, but
that's the delicious.
yeah,
I'm right there.
yeah. In the scene that I saw where the Mai Tai is brought up, I didn't really like that scene, but so I'm not gonna talk about it. I just didn't really like how the lady ordered the drink.
These movies were so long ago, though. It's kind of like, you know, they all were. Now we look back and watch those movies, and you're like, this is so offensive.
It is offensive, but yeah. So, but it's still. I mean, you can catch the movie. It's okay. It's very Elvis Presley. But yeah. Next slide, please. Love in the Ruins. So, and I also want to say, I probably should have said this earlier. A lot of these movies especially, even though this is a book, a lot of these movies were books or were adapted from books, and they have also been redone a few times. So there's no method to my madness as far as why I chose to talk about one that was done in the 2000s versus the one that was done 30 years before that. Just wanted to say that. I just picked it as I went. Love in the Ruins. So this is a science fiction book, and this is written by Walker Percy. It's a book about a psychiatrist and inventor, and his name is Dr. Thomas More, and he invents, I didn't even try to pronounce this, ontological lapsometer.
Yeah, you got it.
So this invention of his, in the book, it was supposed to treat, I guess it was supposed to treat mental illness. It was supposed to treat the harmful mental states of society at their root cause.
We all need that right now.
I need an ontological I can't even pronounce it. Lapsometer. Yes. And in the book also there was a gentleman that was trying to get close to him for a couple reasons. One, they were trying to give him, I think, a Nobel Peace Prize for his invention. And then I think he was also trying to steal it and use it for some kind of way. It was like, if you use it the wrong way, it had the adverse effect.
Yeah.
But anyway, so Dr. Moore, he's so silly. He liked to drink a lot, and he liked the women, amongst other things. So he had a separate side to him as well. He probably could use the ontological lapsometer himself. So he was a big fan of drinking, but he was allergic to egg whites. So there's a part in the book where he's just having fun binge drinking with one of his lovers, and he drinks 7 gin fizzes, and then he breaks out into hives and suffocates. So it's pretty funny. And the author of the book had a very similar incident. So I'm assuming that that's where he tied that into the book, from his being allergic to egg white. And yeah, but I love a good gin fizz.
What does it mean? Why does it say silver there? I'm sorry, I'm not following that part.
So I put silver there because really, from my research and from what I think I know about cocktails, anything saying silver denotes egg white.
Ah, good to know. I didn't know that.
And you can look up, like if you were to look up like how to make a gin fizz, you might get basically a recipe for a Tom Collins without ice.
Oh. Huh. Well, that's
yeah, it's interesting because, and then of course, that you have a Ramos gin fizz.
Yeah, of course.
Kind of like a couple of steps above just a regular gin fizz. So I put this silver there to denote that this particular gin fizz that we're talking about does have egg white.
Yeah, and we all love making a Ramos gin fizz when it's Friday night and service well.
Right. Just hand me the pistol, right?
Yeah, I'm not even going to make it. I'm going to say no.
I'm going to kill myself. I'll make it, but I'm going to kill myself after. Anyway, so the particular gin fizzes that is in this book does have egg white, and that's where the silver denotes. The Boston Globe first published How to Make a Gin Fizz on July 24th, 1882. And I think that Ramos Gin Fizz came shortly after that.
Okay.
All right, next slide, please.
Oh, yeah. Here we go.
Yes.
Oh, I've definitely seen this movie for sure. I'm like James Bond movies. I love it.
Live and Let Die. I really thought this was cool because James Bond, we normally talk about martinis with James Bond, but in this particular movie, he was kind of nudged to drinking some Sazeracs. A large portion of this film takes place in New Orleans. Roger Moore is playing 007, and he tries to take down Mr. Big, and he uses the beautiful solitaire to get close to him. So much of this is set in New Orleans. The fake bar, I think it's called, I didn't put it in here. It was called, I don't remember.
It's been so long.
It's on the tip of my tongue. Anyway, so Bond and his CIA partner, they walk into a bar, and Bond orders 2 neat bourbon. And his partner's like, no, we're having 2 Sazeracs. And he says, where's your sense of adventure? This is New Orleans. Relax. So I think it's pretty,
It's called the Filet of Soul.
Filet, yes. That's what it's called. I had it in here before. No. That's great. Yeah, so that's not a real bar. That's a fake bar that they made up for the sake of the movie. So Sazeracs are one of my favorite cocktails. I'm sure most of you all know they're in the old-fashioned family. Yeah. But for some reason, like it's kind of tricky. You got to know who to get a good real Sazerac from. A lot of people really don't know how to make them.
Yeah.
Rumor is that Antoine Peychaud is the creator and proprietor. Well, we know that he created Peychaud's bitters, and he also is credited for creating the Sazerac in the 1830s. Originally, cognac was used in Sazeracs before rye whiskey. The reason being was phylloxera came and killed a lot of the grapevines. So it was kind of hard to get your hands on some cognac for a long time.
Did the Sazerac cocktail came before the old fashioned though, correct? I feel like that was something I learned as well. It's been a long time since I worked in a bar, let's be honest.
Don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, especially with them talking about being in New Orleans, I start thinking about a Vieux Carré, which I love. That cocktail is
that cocktail is very old. Yeah, and I also when I think of Vieux Carrés, I kind of put that in a Manhattan family, even though
of course.
It's definitely one of the oldest cocktails.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think like, oh, you're gonna make me. I don't want to pull out the books. I'm gonna keep this going. But yeah, so cognac was originally in Sazeracs, and then when phylloxera destroyed a lot of the grapevines, they started using rye whiskey. You can skip to the next slide. I'm sorry. Well, sorry. Thank you. But these days, for the most part, most people use rye whiskey. Sometimes if it's requested, cognac is used. I've even seen bartenders do a combination of both, a combination of cognac and rye in their Sazeracs. It's a great cocktail. It's so good. It seems like it's so hard to make, but I love them. I love them.
Like it's one of the easiest cocktails. So you're right. When you do go into a bar, it's like what we were talking about before. People are saying, I'm a mixologist.
Right.
Maybe I shouldn't order a Sazerac from you. But depending on the space, you're right. You do kind of get the cocktails. Sometimes I've had people put like a half ounce of absinthe in the drink. And I'm like,
I've seen that.
That's not right.
I've seen that. I had someone serve it to me on ice and I'm like, no. Supposed to chill the glass while you make the drink.
Yeah.
Rinse or a good spray of the absinthe. But
yeah, like one of the first cocktails that you learn how to make is, I mean, again, it's same as that blood and sand. It's kind of like, and the Jack Rose, same thing.
If you are not a mixologist, if you can't make a proper Sazerac, I'm sorry. Love you. All right, on to the next slide. The Big Lebowski.
Oh, this movie.
It's a cult favorite, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, I'm talking about White Russians. I'm gonna, make this all encompassing for everyone. So this film is a hot mess of a film. A lot of fun. Jeff the Dude Lebowski. He was mistaken for the millionaire with the same name. And apparently he got roughed up and someone defiled his rug. And he was just he was out for his restitution. He wanted to make that right. But
yeah.
The opening scene that he's actually in the store buying cream to make White Russians. It's all he drank in the movie, White Russians. He had a mishap with the White Russians. It's just that's his favorite.
I feel like he always had it in his hand.
Yeah.
Throughout the whole movie.
How do you drink that much White Russians? But that's his thing. White Russians, I can say to this day, are extremely popular. Even still, having worked in numerous hotels, I have made a lot of White Russians in my day.
Yeah. And then we all know about that variation, which is basically it's called the mind eraser, which the name says it all.
Right. It's like, do you forget or do you want to forget? Which one? But the backstory on this cocktail is kind of fun. It was created in 1949 at the Hotel Metropole. I'm thinking I'm saying that right. It's in Brussels by Gustave Tops in honor of Pearl Mesta, who at the time was the U.S. ambassador to Luxembourg. And it's super easy to make. It's vodka, coffee liqueur, and I usually use half and half. Some people use milk.
Cream is nowadays everyone is lactose intolerant.
What's going on with us? Like, we can't eat anything anymore. And I'm eating grass and bark soon. But anyway, yeah. All right, next slide. Sex in the City and the Cosmopolitan. So this show, I'm sure most people are familiar with this show. It aired between 1998 and 2004. It followed the friendships, lives, professional lives, love lives, sex lives of four girlfriends, Carrie, Samantha, Miranda, and Charlotte. And the drink of choice for Carrie especially was a Cosmopolitan. I also feel like the Cosmopolitan, especially how this show made it so popular, was kind of one of the things that blurred the line between a martini and a drink served in a martini glass.
This is when it all started, really, right? Like this drink came in the 80s, as far as I know.
So a martini being a cocktail, usually a gin martini with maybe some orange bitters at the most, maybe a little dry vermouth. And then somewhere down the line, like anything served in a martini glass was called a martini. And it's not, that's not a martini. But anyway, so it almost feels like the Cosmopolitan became, and I hate to kind of gender assign a cocktail drink, but it almost became like what the martini was for James Bond, but for women.
Yeah, we used to, I mean, that's like when the martini came out, like it was a 50-50 as far as I remember. And that was like a man's drink. And obviously we don't do this gender assignment for cocktails anymore. Y'all drink everything that you want. But back when this cocktail was originally created, there's three different people, as far as I know, that claim fame to it. But it was all just specifically to get more women in their bar, as far as I know.
Right. Make it pink, put it in a martini glass. But
I mean, I'll drink it, obviously.
I mean, I'll drink it if it's made right. I'll drink it too.
Yeah, totally.
It made its debut on the show in the second episode. Carrie was having a birthday dinner with her friends, and then again in episode 7, and then throughout the series. And it became a popular symbol of feminine independence, freedom, and sisterhood, as far as in the context of the show, especially. Even though you drink what you want, drink what you like.
Yes, exactly.
And that's really all that really matters. Next slide, please. Oh yeah, and this is just kind of talking a little bit about the creation of the Cosmopolitan. So there's so many different stories about who created it. There's a Minneapolis bartender in 1975. His name was Neil Murray. He claims that he created it by adding a little bit of cranberry juice to a kamikaze.
That's basically what it is, right?
It is what it is. Sure. And then the late, great Gaz Reagan, miss him so much, credited Cheryl Cook to the drink's creation in 1986 in South Beach, Florida. And then he also claimed that the more refined and internationally recognized recipe followed in 1989. By Toby Caccini and Melissa Huffsmith Roth in Manhattan. Vodka, orange curacao, lime juice, cranberry juice. Of course, a lot of people will say that you have to use citrus vodka.
Yeah, Toby Caccini originally made it with a very well-known vodka brand of their citrus mark.
But still fun facts. Modern classic, and it's actually quite tasty, especially if done with fresh ingredients. So, next slide, please. Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. This movie is crazy.
I love this movie.
I actually watched it last night, and I was like, this is crazy. The debauchery is basically I'm trying to pick my words right because I don't want y'all to be like, we're not talking to Toki no more because she was talking about crazy stuff. This whole movie was a binge.
Induced.
Right. Raoul Duke it's so hard to keep up with this because it's so like so many hallucinations and just wacky stuff going on in this film. I believe he is he works for the press. Like he's a writer, and so him and his lawyer they this movie is so crazy. So they ride to Las Vegas from LA. They rent this beautiful red convertible. And it's just a lot of debauchery and y'all know what I'm talking about. It's a lot of crazy stuff going on.
Pretty much everyone who's watching this has seen that movie for sure. Now we're getting into like the movies that pretty much everyone has seen, and this is again a cult classic. They are
were partying like a rock star.
It's like with
stuff in the trunk, you know. And so so there's a flashback toward the beginning of the movie, where Raul and his buddy, they're at this at the Beverly Hills Hotel drinking Singapore slings with shots of mezcal on the side, waiting for the phone call to go to Las Vegas to go to these motorcycle races. And so they get there, and it's just it's just so crazy because like there's especially Raul, he's so out of it. Like people, like he's hallucinating, and people look like lizards, and just like he looks at the bar, like he's sitting at the bar, and he's like hallucinating, and like the bar snacks turn into worms, and it's just crazy film. They trash the hotel room. And they get paranoid that they're gonna, you know, get arrested. And then so he like is driving from Vegas and gets pulled over by Dave what's his name? Busey.
I mean,
who played the cop?
Gary Busey?
Gary Busey. I'm so sorry, David Busey. He's nobody. I made him up. Gary Busey. So it's a super crazy film. But yeah, so it that particular part with the Singapore slings is fun because they're like just walking around in the street with this Singapore sling. So much debauchery.
This movie gets a little difficult as they go further and further into their descent to really follow it. And I remember when I first saw it, I did not understand what was going on. I had to watch it like 3 or 4 times, and like over the course of 10 years, 15 years, watch it more and more just to kind of understand what was going on. I still don't really get it, but
I don't think they get it either. And it's a wild trip, and it's definitely for adults, but Singapore slings are so delicious.
So many ingredients. I love it.
So delicious. And the history of that cocktail, created sometime between 1899 and 1915. I don't want to mess up his first name. I'm going to call him Mr. Boone.
Yeah.
The bartender at the Long Bar in the Raffles Hotel in Singapore. And I would say that the recipe that probably most of us use now is a combination of gin, Benedictine, cherry herring, lime juice, pineapple juice, grenadine, and Angostura bitters. And so it's a long drink. It's a lot of ingredients, but it's so delicious.
Yeah,
I remember drinking these. I went to the Bahamas and I had these. Oh, so good.
That cherry herring though is like the clutch ingredient in a Singapore sling, as far as I'm concerned. I feel like any variation that you see of this particular cocktail, it always has cherry herring in it. So that's definitely that's the jam. Yes. This is another cocktail that you can 100% add my brands to.
Oh, you could definitely add some mezcal to it. You could sub the mezcal for the gin. Or you could do like a float of mezcal. Like you could get real playful with this cocktail, and it's so delicious and juicy. And I love Singapore sling, so that's a lot of fun. A lot of fun. That was fun. Next slide, please. All right, so Casino Royale. The only reason I chose the 2006 film version is because this is the only one that I saw. The book, the book was written in 1953. And this is where the iconic Vesper martini comes from. And it is so, I just love this so much because I love how the author, Ian Fleming, I love how I was looking for where he got this from. Like, did he create this at home? Like, where did he get this combination for this martini and incorporate it into this book that would also be 2 movies? So Casino Royale was the first novel written by Ian Fleming in the Bond series. In the story, James Bond, he heads to Madagascar, where he tries to overtake a financier to terrorist organizations. And basically, he tries to overturn his objective in a poker game. So in the 2006 film version, during the poker game, he calls the barman over to the table, and I believe this quotation is pretty much the same as it is written in the book, but he orders, he says he wants a dry martini, but he wants it specifically 3 measures of gin, 1 of vodka, half a measure of quinoa lillet. Shake it very well until it's ice cold. Then add a large thin slice of lemon peel. The only thing.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say the only thing that I have to argue with as far as this recipe is stirring it instead of shaking it.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And I feel like, I think it's funny throughout all of these movies, he had, like you were talking about earlier with the Sazerac in one James Bond film. And then for a long time, it was a martini shaken, not stirred. And then, now it's this cocktail. So it's kind of like moving through the times, really, with all of these James Bond movies with the cocktails and stuff. I think that's cool.
I love it.
I do agree. The shaken, not stirred. I think you should always stir something if it doesn't have juice in it. There was a famous cocktail enthusiast that would talk about you stir cocktails like martinis so that the molecules lay more elegantly over top of each other. And I always, that'll never leave me.
So much fun, and just the cocktail culture that just came out of the James Bond lineage is just, it's just so much fun, and it's just so many things. So Vesper was the woman that steals his heart in the story. She was also a special agent. And rumor has it that Vesper was the only woman that James Bond truly loved. And the drink is named after her. So
I love
super
it.
cute, super sexy, super delicious and sophisticated. And I love it. Love it, love it, love it. All right, next slide. I think this might be the last one. Django Unchained.
I love this movie.
I do too. It's so much fun. I love Quentin Tarantino. I love how he's so controversial, but I love how he just adds different layers, like different elements together. Like you have like the whole like slavery era, but then you have a German bounty hunter, and then it's this whole Western kind of, he just does so many different layers, and he's just so over the top, and I just love it. But the cocktail with this is a Polynesian pearl diver. So in this particular film, Django, who is played by Jamie Foxx, is a slave. He earns his freedom by helping a German bounty hunter catch a brutal duo, brothers. And then upon completion, they go through some other, they do their bounty hunter thing, and then he goes to try to rescue his wife. So
who is still, once he's gotten away, who is still enslaved.
Correct.
He's
Correct.
still part of
He was separated from his wife during,
Yeah.
And so his wife belongs to plantation owner Calvin Candy, who is Leonardo DiCaprio, another one of my favorite actors.
Yeah.
And there's a scene where they're doing some mandingo fighting in the den where his bar is. And Django is trying to infiltrate the plantation so he can rescue his wife. And Calvin orders, he has his barkeep Roscoe make him a couple of Polynesian pearl divers, which is really just a modernized version of the Beachcomber Classic, the pearl diver. And it's kind of funny because the pearl diver was created way after these times.
Yeah.
But it's still fun to put it in there. I knew nothing of the pearl diver before this movie. And I thought it was just super fun. I love those styles of cocktails. And it's a super rummy cocktail with some falernum, orange juice, lime juice, and a few recipes I've seen. It either calls for pearl diver mix or Don's Gardenia mix, which is basically a mix of honey, butter, and different assortment of spiced syrups. So
I love it. I love that. I mean, I love a pearl diver in general. I tend to make those at home for my husband because he likes sweet cocktails. But I'm like, you can only have one because if you have more than one, he doesn't really drink. He just gets wasted. So
yeah, it's a lot of sugar. But,
yeah, of course.
It's a nice treat, though.
Yeah, of course. Oh, I love all of this. This has been so fun.
I had a lot of fun.
Well, I always love, I mean, all of us kind of see the cocktails throughout all of these movies and such. And honestly, like, you kind of forget that there's a history behind the drinks, not just them being in the movie. That's how they became popular, but there's a definite like lineage to the cocktails. And I think that you kind of hit all of it today. I think that's really cool. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope everyone had fun as well. And yeah.
Well, so if you want to see more distance learning classes like this one, please follow, again, Portland Cocktail Week. They're doing new classes on weekdays only. Campari is sponsoring the classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So I'll be here again next Tuesday with our friend Marco. But we're also on Instagram. Again, Toki is at Miss Libation, and I am at Ancho Hancho. And please, again, follow Campari Community for all the things that we're doing throughout the next few weeks. And then just make sure that you follow all of our team as well. And then for the folks that aren't on Facebook, I know that there's some of you out there. We are on YouTube. So please take a listen and all of these things. And Toki, again, thank you for putting all of this together for us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Corey. It's been super fun.
I know. I can't wait to meet you in person. I hate this.
Yes. Well, hopefully we can get through this. We'll be fine, and we'll see each other very soon.
All right. Well, and again, thank you everybody for coming. We appreciate you. I hope you enjoyed this as much as we did, and we'll see you next time. Bye.